Hello, I'm Jeremy, and today I came across a video from Styxhexenhammer about prison guards and Mr. Epstein and his suicide or assassination, whatever. Nobody knows. He makes assumptions about this. But as someone who's worked in a prison as an officer, I wanted to comment on all of this because what he does in the video is he just makes assumptions about it. So before we get into it, make sure that you like, thumbs up, subscribe, become a member. I've got Patreon and subscribe star. But anyways, this is what it is. Whenever I was working there at a level 5 maximum security prison, these were the guards. Young, old, short, fat, thin, tall, men, women, all of it. It wasn't just all of these just big guys like, oh, mess with me, I'll tear you up, you better keep in place. No. I mean, they had some guys that were like that who were like, I just want to fight, and you'll do as you're told. And they had names from them. They were RoboCops. And then you had the exact opposite, where they were pushovers because they were scared of the offenders and that they did everything that an offender ever asked of them. And it's because you had little girls who were young. Whenever I went through the academy, there was a woman who turned 80 years old about halfway on through it. And she was like paper thin, and she was like this tall. She was one of them. She worked in Pameo, which is, there are some state mental hospitals, but if you're too violent to be put in one, then you go to prison. And it's kind of like a mental hospital in the Pameo division where they're giving you meds. They have some psychologists to kind of work with you, but these are kind of really people who, it's not like a bad childhood. There's like chemically something wrong up here, or some kind of something that's physically wrong and not just bad circumstances. You'd have to go in and have some science fiction surgery done on you to be able to fix it, and it's like we don't have anything like that. And so this is a few days old, I guess, but it's called Epstein Guards Skate After Coping an Obvious Backroom Plea Deal. None of this is obvious. Whenever I worked out there at the prison, you had plenty of officers out there who did not care. They were lazy. They were dumb. They felt sympathetic for the offenders. And they let things go. I remember there was just a handful of times where I went from GP, general population. I had to go over there to Pameo because they were too short-handed. Part of Pameo is that they have a suicide watch. And the way that it's supposed to be is that for every inmate who's on suicide watch, there's supposed to be one officer who watches them. So they're over there in their cell, and you're over here just sitting there watching them to make sure that they're not doing anything. Because even though the cell is completely bare, they managed to do it, and that actually happened. I think it was a couple of days before or maybe after I was doing this. One of the inmates had enough time where there was this little piece of metal somewhere that he was able to wiggle it free and finally break it through, and then he just started cutting at his arm and his wrist. I think, no, it was before, because I talked to him. And he said, he was asking, how do I get to, I forgot the name of the mental hospital because it was one of these hospitals that was allowing for some potential Pameo inmates to be transferred over there. And I said, I don't know, but I do know this, is that the reason why you're here is because you are too violent. You go to one of these mental hospitals, they're going to have doctors and nurses, and they're not going to have anything very hard in the realm of security. So they're not going to feel very comfortable or safe with you. They want someone who's mentally disabled, but they're non-aggressive. So you cutting yourself and threatening others, that's never going to get you in there. He's like, oh, I never thought of it like that. It's like, well, yeah. So next time whenever you think about actually having some kind of weapon, even if you're just using it on yourself, the medical staff at one of these mental installations is not going to look kindly on that. And they're going to say, yeah, hey, you can take that person back to prison. Whenever I was doing it, there were not enough officers to be able to have one-on-one for each one. And so you had to walk up and down this row of nothing but cells of inmates who were on suicide watch. And yes, it just takes a moment for you to be able to slit your throat or cut your wrists. And then you're just bleeding out all over the place and you're going to die. It also happened with inmates where it would just be, these are just little clippers here for nails. But it just takes one little piece of metal and you can just come up to someone just because it's just small and it's just a little point in there, and it's just big enough to be able to get in there, and you just do it super fast. And you just cut them all up. And they did that. Not all the time, but it happened. They'd have their gangs and their rivals, and it's just... And then they're dead. These guards, they're not superheroes. They're not geniuses. And it's because they're not people of outstanding moral character. It's the same thing whenever you go to the Social Security office here. The wait lines are long. And the people are incompetent who are working back here. And it's because it's a 9-to-5 job. They're just being hired there. The people who work at the prison, they also work at the Social Security office. Or here's the DMV. These people who work here, they didn't go to Harvard or Yale. They don't have Ivy League degrees. The people who work at all of these jobs, high school graduates, every last one. These are not high echelon competent people. Yeah, you get some that they know the job and they're very proud to do it and they work hard at it. And then there's many who are just like, And then there are some who are like, I don't give a damn. And then you put that on top of that there are bribes. And they can come from offenders, especially those who are gang affiliated. And they'll pay you a good deal of money. There was one officer who got caught who was smuggling in drugs. I don't know exactly what it was. And he was getting like $2,000 a week. And the pay was only a couple thousand, give or take. I guess, depending on your rank, $2,000 to $3,000 a month. And so you're talking about having that much money roughly per week? It's like, yeah, and they get bribed all the time. So to say that these guards got bribed by rich people, I find that hard to believe. That there's going to be like a George Soros character who's going to bribe these guards. And it's because all those guards, they do know the inmates. So for example, we had the eyeball killer. And what he was this dude who went around looking at prostitutes and would kidnap them and gouge out their eyeballs. And he had a thing for girls with blue eyes especially. And he would tell some of the female officers every now and then, what pretty eyes you had. And it's like, yeah, you can shut the hell up. So girls didn't like working with him too much, obviously. So. But they were aware, who these people were. Not all of them. I mean, there were plenty of them, tons of them, where it's like, don't know. And some of them would just flat out talk about whatever it was that they had done. But there were plenty of gangs that, if there was a pedophile that they knew about, guy'd get jumped or just flat out killed. So the way that it works is that whenever you go to a prison and you're a member of the gang, you get tattooed up, and those tattoos represent something. So if you have like a little tattoo of an eye drops right there, that means that you've been in prison. And then they have tattoos if you've killed somebody, and it's like, well, who did you kill? Was it a member of an opposing gang? Was it a pedophile? And so depending on the actions that you do, you get the tattoos, and the tattoos signify kind of your rank and your status within the gang. And so is there somebody within the prison system who understood that Mr. Epstein was in there and that he was a pedophile? Would they have been looking in on him, trying to kill him to get status and recognition within their gang? Absolutely. So could that have happened? Yes. So, and then talking about how the cameras don't work, it's like, yes, the cameras were down all the time. All the time, those cameras were down. And so it's like, back here with all this computers that they have here, it's not like they have state-of-the-art electronics there. It's not. It's overpriced. Whenever you do anything with the government, they pay like $80 for a hammer. There was this scam kind of thing during the Gulf War where they didn't have enough parts to do the maintenance on the vehicles. And so if you had like a business that dealt with parts, screws, nuts, bolts, or whatever, you could send that on in, and you could charge for it however you want. And there were these twins, these women who were twins. They did this, and one time they accidentally typed in an extra zero instead of $10 it was 100. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna get in trouble. They didn't get caught, and they kept upping it more and more and more. So I went ahead and looked it up. So Charlene Corley is a former defense contractor who was convicted in 2007 on 2 counts of conspiracy over the course of 9 years leading to the September 2006 where she got caught. So from 2006 to 2007, the company owned by her and her sister have found to have received $21.5 million from the United States Department of Defense for fraudulent shipping costs. In one instance, the company was paid $998,798 for shipping 2 19-cent washers. Washers are just round little flat things. In order to pay $15.5 million in restitution. The reason why it only says anything about her because her twin committed suicide. So the crime, the next little part, along with her twin sister Darlene, Corley was the co-owner of D&D Distributors, a supplier of small hardware components, plumbing fixtures, electronics, equipment to the military. Basically, I saw it on some old TV shows like Scams, Scoundrels, and Suckers, or American Greed, or something like that. And they just accidentally put in an extra zero or an extra number there. They didn't get caught. They kept pushing it, and they kept going up and up and up and up and up, and it was absolutely ridiculous. I forgot how they ended up getting caught, but yeah, and this is what happens constantly with the government, is that they pay for all these parts and materials, and they overpay constantly. And this was just an example of it. This is just one instance where they found this going on. They don't know who else was doing it. And whenever they made that episode, they don't know if anything had been put into place to stop it. They pay high prices for stupid stuff. And so they don't have good equipment. And here at the prison, they don't have good equipment. The video camera stuff was always going down. The electronics for the locks, because where I'm at, you had like this kind of little control tower, and you had a pod divided up into 3 sections. And up there, it's kind of like a control booth. You could unlock all the doors. Up there in the tower, you'd have little switches for every single door out there. And that stuff broke constantly. And they knew whenever that equipment was gone, whenever the cameras were down, because fights and killings happened constantly. And it would happen miraculously in these sections of the prison that they didn't have camera feeds. That happened to me at least twice. That happened once out there at Charlie Pod where a couple of gang members got into it, and I don't know, no one died. I can't remember if they'd stabbed each other or if it was just fist fighting. So maybe it was just the one time that it happened to me. But that happened several times. We talked about that a lot in Turnout. So Styxhexenhammer saying that, oh, it's just coincidence that these low-paid high school workers, it's just a coincidence that they just managed to falsify this information about checking in on them. It's like, yes, that's 100% realistic. That the cameras weren't working and that they happened to be out, yes, that's 100% completely realistic. So, and then would they take money? It's like, how is anybody going to know who these guards are, when they're going to go on shift? Because we didn't decide where we went on shift. It was the captain. And we had lieutenants and sergeants in between us and them. So how are you going to find and bribe the senior officer who's in charge to put these people, to find all these people within the facility that are going to take bribes and make this all happen? I don't know how you do that. Because just by going around and asking, that's going to raise red flags. And there are going to be a few people in there who's going to bring it to somebody's attention. It's like, yeah, hey, they were talking about me, bribing me with all of this money to do this. And it would have to be a lot of money, because with these people, I've seen this too with like the DMV and Social Security. You can go off and you can get fake identification. And you can slip them a couple $1,000s, but they have that happen constantly. And so they'll get thousands of dollars extra each and every single month. And so this happens with illegal immigrants whenever they cross over the border, because these people are just making, like not very much. But one of the ways that you can kind of identify them is because they're living above and beyond the means of their pay. And it's because they're being supplemented and because they're doing illegal transactions with these people. And they'll pay, and they'll do it, but to do it one time, to risk losing your job, it's like people still want their jobs. So it would have to be a lot of money, and you'd have to have quite a few people in the chain of command to be able to do it. So I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm just saying that everything that happened is within the realm of possibility. So this is just my observation from my experience as an officer. So if you like my videos, like, thumbs up, and subscribe. Patreon and subscribe stars there. I'll have links in the description below too towards Styxhexenhammer's video here, so you can take a look at yourself. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you later.